Hello and welcome. I'm Kritika. In this demonstration, our objective is to develop an item creation workflow agent that helps product managers efficiently create multiple items at once following industry standards. The item creation AA agent enables product managers and data stewards to rapidly generate items tailored to business requirements. It optimizes the creation process, reduces manual effort, and enhances the quality of products. To create the agent from scratch, we need to follow two steps. Create and configure nodes for the agent. Start by adding the business object function node to read and update application data. Use an LLM node when you need natural language interpretation or to generate responses. Define agent node to coordinate tasks by triggering other agents or workflows as part of your process. Add condition nodes to route the flow based on business rules. Use the set variable node to store intermediate values, flags, or user context used by later nodes. Use send email node to automatically send email to the right recipients based on workflow actions. And then finally test the agent in the debug mode. To begin, let's go to the AA Agent Studio, which is where developers and administrators create and manage these workflow agents. Let's get on to the tools, AA Agent Studio. Before we dive into making our agent team, we'll first create our item creation agent. This agent will do the actual item creation work for us in the workflow agent team. So head on to the Agents tab. Create a new agent. Key in the agent name. Notice the code fills in automatically. Add the family and product details. Set the maximum interaction limit. This means the agent can interact up to 10 times per session, a good way to control the agent's activity. Key in a description. Next, let's key in the prompt for our agent. This is where you tell the agent what to do and how to do it. Clear and direct prompts will help your agent perform better. Let me key in the prompt details. Let's go over the prompt step by step. First, we set the agent persona and task. In our case, the agent job is to create items. Next, we have the sequence of steps to be followed. We start by telling the agent to use the item classes business object tool to retrieve and display item classes. This helps the agent accurately find the item classes even if the user only enters part of the name. If the agent can't find a valid class, we are instructing the agent to tell the user and show a sample of available classes. That's the first step. And in the next step, we are checking for the inventory organization information. If the user provides a org code that is not a master org, we are instructing the agent to create the item first in the master organization and then in the user provided organization. Next, we retrieve all the item attribute details following industry standards. Once all the info is ready, we are instructing the agent to create items using the item creation business object tool. Finally, we are asking the agent to show the item details like item ID and item number in the output variables. Thus, our agent has a clear and detailed instructions on how to proceed with the item creation. That's about the prompt. Next, let's set up the output variables. We'll use the simple mode. We'll need the item ID and item number information from the agent. So let's create variables for them. We'll first create item ID of type string. Say apply. Next, we'll create the item number variable. The output variables are created. Say create. This will create the basic agent structure. Next, let's add the tools required for our agent. Get on to tools. Look for the item classes business object tool. Add the business object to the agent. This business object will help the agent retrieve and validate item class details. Next, let's add the item creation business object tool. This tool does the actual item creation in the system. That's it, our agent team is created. We have got our prompt, tools, and output variables. Let's create and publish the agent. We are done with the agent step. Next, let's build a workflow agent to handle user inputs, call our item creation agent, and email the details of created items. Head on to the Agent Team tab. Create a new agent team. Key in a name. Enter the family and product details. Set the type to workflow. This helps you organize steps into sequence, automating the process end to end. That's about the header. Next, let's create the input trigger. These are the details the workflow will need from the user. So get on to the triggers. We'll need to collect the inventory org in which the item needs to be created, industry or item class information, prefix for the item number, and the number of items to be created. So let's create a webhook variable for all this information. Say add. Let's first collect the organization info. We'll make this a string variable. Say apply. Next, we need to include the industry or item class information. We'll also make this a string. Then we need the number of items to be created. We'll make this a number. And finally, we need the prefix for item number. Which will be a string. Let's apply. That sets up our input trigger. Next, let's set up the workflow variables. Variables store data as you move through the workflow. Each node in your workflow can access and update these variables. They are super handy for storing IDs, constants, or information to pass between steps. Let's go ahead and create the variables required for this agent. First, we'll need an input org variable to store the information provided for organization by the user. We'll call it input org. This is of type string. Next, we need a master org code variable to store your business master organization. This is string again. Next, we need a string variable to store the email ID of the users. And we need an email data variable to build the email content. And finally, we need an agent input variable which will store the dynamic input from the item creation agent. We are good with the variables. Let's create the agent team. With triggers and variables set, let's start building the workflow nodes. In a workflow agent, each workflow node does a specific job like extracting data, checking business logic, generating language model input, or sending email. And these nodes are linked together in sequence, keeping everything flowing and controlled. To start a node, just hover over between the start and end of your workflow and click on the plus symbol to choose the node type. Let's start with the set variable node. We can use this node to set value for our variables. Give it a name. First, let's take the user's org input from the trigger and set it to the input org variable. Say add. Choose the variable we just created for input org. And use the context to grab these values. Context lets you collect information from various places like the system variables, workflow details, user session details, trigger, variables, and nodes. In our case, we need the trigger input from the org code variable. So let's use the trigger, rest, and add the value from the variable org code. The expression is automatically built in for you. Just say apply. The input org variable is set. Next, let's set the recipient email address variable. Say add. Choose the email ID variable. We'll set sample email for this demo. Say apply. Finally, we need to set your master org value. In this instance, it is operations. So let me set the org code for master org. It is 000. Say apply. We are good with the input variables that is to be set. Click on create. And our first node is created. Next, let's create an agent node to call our item creation agent. Hover over the workflow line. Click on plus. Add an agent node. Give it a name. Fill in the family and product details. Choose the agent we just built. For agent input, we'll use the agent input variable, for which we'll generate values based on user input through LLM shortly. Let's use the context to pick up the variable. Say apply. The output variables are automatically defaulted from the agent. Click on create. The agent node is created. Next, we need an LLM node to build this agent input variable, but the exact input depends upon whether the user provided org is master org or not. Time for a condition node. Hover over the workflow line before item creation agent and create a condition node. Give it a name. Use the context to compare the user's org input variable with the master org variable. The input org provided by the user is compared with the master org stored in the variables. Click on create to create the condition node. The condition node is created, and this lets us split the flow depending upon the user input. When the condition is true, that is when user org is equal to master org, we'll straight away ask the LLM node to create the agent input based on the user provided details. But when the condition is not true, that is when user org is not master org, we'll tweak the LLM to create the item first in the master organization and then in the user provided organization. So let's begin constructing the true branch. Use the plus icon to add LLM node. Key in a name. Key in a prompt to the LLM. In the prompt, we are asking the LLM to construct the agent input message with details like the count of the item to be created, org in which the item should be created, the item class and prefix. And for all these key details required, we'll ask the agent to use the user input stored in the input trigger variables. We'll also ask the LLM to store this dynamic input generated with user provided details to the message variable so that we can use it for the item creation agent later. Set the temperature. Create output variable to store the LLM output. We'll name it message of type string. Say apply. Click on create to create this LLM node. The LLM node is ready. Next, we need to add a set variable node to pass the LLM output to the agent input variable we created before. Click on the plus icon to create a set variable node. Key in a name. Click on add to add the variable. Let's choose the agent input variable and set the value using the context from the previous node. We'll call the output node from the construct agent input node and assign the message variable output here. Click on apply. Say create, and the set variable node is done. Now our agent input for the true branch is ready. Similarly, let's construct the false node. Here again, we'll need a LLM node. So create LLM node. Let's give it a name. Key in the prompt, but here the prompt will tell the LLM to create items both in the master org and the user provider organization. This prompt is similar to the earlier LLM prompt, but here we are ensuring that the items are created both in the master organization and the user provider organization. Key in the temperature. Set the output variable in simple mode. We'll use the message variable of string type. Click on apply. Say create to create the LLM node. The LLM node is done. Similar to the true branch, we'll also need a set variable node to set the LLM output to the agent input variable. Create a set variable node. Key in a name. And we'll add variable to set the agent input variable based on LLM output. We'll again use the context to set the new LLM node output to this agent input variable. Click on apply. Say create. Now both the branches are set with the LLM output set to the agent input variable. So let's get back to the main flow. Next is our item creation node. It runs using the agent input variable, which we just constructed using the LLM outputs. So we are good here. Next, let's add a set variable node after item creation to create the email message dynamically with the details of item created by the agent. Create a set variable node. Key in a name. We'll use the email data variable and assign value to this variable. In the email message, we have used context variables to grab the creator's user detail and the item detail from the agent output. This message builds dynamically for each run and it is stored in the email data variable. The variable node is done. Click on apply. Say create. In the last step, let's add an email node to send the details of item created to the user. Key in a name. Use the email ID variable to fetch the recipients. Set a subject line. For the content of the email, let's use the context and get the data from the email data variable. This will ensure the email recipient gets all the item details and the user details. Click on create. The email node is created and our workflow agent is now complete. Here is how it runs from start to finish. The workflow starts with the variable node to set the variable values. Then we have a branching to decide the LLM input based on the master org details. Once the LLM input is decided, we call the item creation agent to create items. Then we use the variable and email node to send the details of item created to product data stewards and product managers. We are good with the agent. Let's start testing it in the debug mode. The trigger type is REST. We see the trigger input we defined. Let's key in the input values. We'll key in the item prefix, number of items to be created, and in this case we'll create the items in Sutures item class. We'll create it at the master org. Start test. In the debug mode, we could see the step-by-step execution of the workflow. First, in the set details node, the input variables are set. In this case, the master org and our input org is same, and we also have the sample email set here. Then you have the condition node, which checks if the user provided value is master org. In our case, it is true, so the condition has turned true. Then under true condition, it branches out to the LLM node and constructs the input message for the agent. It uses the prompt and constructs the input message for item creation agent dynamically to create one item in Sutures item class in organization 000 using the prefix we just provided. Then in the agent input node, the output message of the LLM node is assigned to the agent input variable. The agent calls happen next and the constructed input message is passed to the agent using the agent input variable. It calls the business object tools to validate the item classes and uses the item creation business object tool to construct the item based on the user provided data and creates the item successfully. and the output item ID and item numbers are stored in the variable set. And in the next set email variable node, the email message is constructed dynamically with the user details and the item details. And finally, in the email node, email is successfully triggered to the user IDs defined in the variable, and the email message successfully holds the user and item details we constructed. Thus, using workflow agents, product managers, and product data stewards can rapidly generate multiple items tailored to your business requirement. It optimizes the creation process, reduces manual effort, and enhances the quality of products.